Almost there. I can do this just a little further. This right here is moments before I either accomplish the greatest feat in my gaming career or fall to my death to delete an entire week's worth of progress. And you might be wondering how I even got to this point and why I'm even in this situation in the first place. Well, for that, we have to go back to the fateful day of character selection. You see, I decided to play the newest Mario game called Super Mario Bros. Wonder with the intention to 100% it, which is sort of what I do for a living. But looking through the vast amount of reviews regarding the game, it came to my attention that it was just too easy. So why then did I decide to play it even though I was sort of known for playing brutally hard games? Well, simple, it's because there were a slew of characters I could kill off.
Wait, what?
Let me explain. So even though the review said the game was too easy, I still wanted to play it because the game featured a ton of new creative concepts and ideas that I just couldn't miss out on, with one of those features having the option to play a range of different characters. And since I had a hard time choosing which character to play and wanted to make the game more challenging, I then thought, hey, why not just play all of them, but add a rule that when I die, that character stays dead, and if I run out of characters to play, I have to delete the game file and restart from the very beginning. Why do I do this to myself? And so with the rules set in stone, I randomized to pick my very first victim, skipped through the dialogue because I could care less about the story, and began the journey to find out if it was possible to 100% Mario Wonders with 1 life per character. Oh, and I won't be using these guys because they're apparently invincible, which is freaking cringe. For the first level, I started out by learning the different movesets and also found out that I needed to collect every big purple coin, wonder seeds, and grab the top of the flagpole to get this check mark to indicate that I have fully completed the level. Then I went on to easily clear the next couple of levels because the only thing that stood between me and dying were walking/singing piranha plants that I singed with my fireballs, and an acorn spitting rodent that I violently chased after all the way to their underground homes to traumatize them even further. After that was getting on a propeller flower to go to the next stage of World 1 where Bowser was stinking up the whole place. An obvious side effect from the acid trip of a flower he consumed a while ago. But with the wonder seeds I had collected, I reverted the affected areas back to normal to then obtain my first perk called the parachute badge, which I effectively used against his bulls to avoid getting rammed into the ground. The hippos, on the other hand, were not as aggressive but annoying nonetheless in their own way. Afterwards, I tried out to break levels, which involved doing a series of overly simple tasks to obtain a wonder seed, which isn't that interesting, so I won't be talking about them anymore. Then I visited the poppling shop to see what I could buy with my abundance of cash. There were a total of 5 items I could choose from, which included a coin reward badge, a wonder seed, one mushroom in different bundles, and a standee surprise. The coin badge seemed absolutely useless, but I bought it anyways because I sort of knew it was required to 100% the game. Didn't buy the wonder seed since I had enough to unlock the next area, so I skipped it. One-up mushrooms were worthless because of the 1 life per character rule. Then I spent a large chunk of my money on the standee surprises because the dopamine rush from getting a new standee had me absolutely hooked. I wonder why. Once I was done blowing half of my money, I went up north and found a poplin with a pickaxe, who apparently needed 10 flower coins to give him an extra boost to break this boulder that looks like he's already half broken. You con artist! Obviously, the poplins in the flower kingdom were all in cahoots to drain me of all my hard-earned cash, so to prevent the little buggers from exploiting me, I left to travel east instead. But first, I needed to race against this giant bug, who apparently couldn't keep up with an elephant for some reason, despite having 6 whole legs with skates to boot. Haha, what a sore loser. Oh, that's right. Run away. Run away. Oh, okay, that's awkward. Beating the gracious worm awarded me the auto super mushroom badge that spawned you've guessed it, a super mushroom, which led me to go down this pipe to try it out in one of the levels, and what had happened was beyond anything I could have ever imagined. Absolutely nothing happened. This was probably due to the fact that I already had a power-up, but you get them at the start of every level anyway, so it didn't change the fact that the badge was utterly garbanzo. So after finishing this level, I went back up to try out another one instead called the wall climb badge, which made me feel like a parkouring pro, so I replaced it with the garbanzo badge. After acquiring the wall climb badge, I went back down the pipe to finish the rest of the levels, starting with this one where I kicked a bunch of shells, pushed a bunch of pipe, and I definitely tried not to fall in this toxic purple blob that would most likely result in my instant death. Emphasis on try. Ladies and gentlemen, we are gathered here today to remember and bear witness to one of the best plumbers I ever knew. And I just hope he's in a much better place now. Rest in peace, old friend. Alright, let's see who the next victim will be, and Yellow Toad it is! Welcome to the chopping block. And so with our new disposable of a character chosen and making sure to equip the parachute badge this time to not let this happen again, curse your wall climb badge, I went on to easily finish up the purple pool level with ease, as well as the level after that, which was just killing a bunch of mobs to get a time faster than 70 seconds that I absolutely crushed on my second try. Then once I completed all the levels in the toxic underworld, I ventured back up to see what was over here, and Well, would you look at that? We have enough seats to enter the castle now. And that's gonna get rid of the coil. And oh look, it's not a 4-star difficulty level stage that I just saw a while ago. Sounds good to me. Oh, you've got to be kidding me. Besides going through the underpass of doom that I somehow safely ran across with elegantly timed panic hops, the level in itself wasn't all that bad. As for who awaited me at the end was none other than our favorite daddy's boy, Bowser Jr., who let's just say was very flickable. Although he did land a hit on me in his smaller form, which startled me just a little bit, but I went on to finish it up with a succession of head bonks, resulting in my victory and obtaining my very first royal nut. I know it's called a royal seed, I don't care, it looks more like a nut to me. End of discussion. And with the World 1 castle back to normal, I proceeded to continue on to the next area called the Pedal Isles, where I used the royal nut like a Pokeball to capture one of Bowser's Cloud Piranhas. He wasn't very happy with that, but what's he gonna do? Come after me with an army of war machines to obliterate my very existence? Of course not. I mean, it's not like this video is sponsored by War Thunder. This video is sponsored by War Thunder, the most comprehensive vehicle combat game ever created, with over 2,000 tanks, planes, helicopters, and ships that are incredibly detailed and modeled down to their individual components. Will have you experiencing the most realistically simulated warlike combat of the highest caliber. And when I mean realistic, I mean you can literally play at a whopping 4K resolution. Oh my goodness, the immersion. There's even an in-depth customization system where you can apply hundreds of camouflages, historical markings, 3D decorators such as bushes, equipment, and a body pillow. One of my favorite features about War Thunder is that the vehicles don't have general hit points but display an X-ray vision of how I brutally obliterate my opponents. And you can too if you use my link in the description, as War Thunder is completely free to play and available on PC, PlayStation, and a console that no one uses anymore. Plus, with their newest release air security update, you can now fly the legendary F-15, Su-27, and JAS-39 Griffin to shoot your enemies down over an active volcano, or run your plane directly into one yourself so you don't give them the satisfaction of taking you down. And if you're still not convinced, War Thunder is currently rolling out a limited time offer for new players, or if you've been inactive for at least 6 months, with 100,000 silver coins, 7 days of premium account, exclusive 3D skins, the Eagle of Valor decoration, festive holiday decals to celebrate the New Year, and much more. Thank you, War Thunder, for sponsoring this video. Alright, back to the game. After staring at Bowser for the entire sponsored segment, I then made my way up to grab a free Wonder Seed, learned to use the Dolphin Kick badge to then apply it in the next 2 levels, which went swimmingly well. Then I visited a Poplin shop again to purchase the ad block badge to remind you guys to watch every ad for this video and not skip them so I can feed my family, orphanage, and eventually stop world hunger. Bought more standees, but only until I got a duplicate, which didn't take long, curses. Used the new power up where I could blow bubbles to disintegrate these straw spitting Tweety birds. Then with the accumulated Wonder Seeds, I used it to unlock the entrance to the second world, to which I was so ready to tackle right away. Except it turned out that I had to buy the Wonder Seeds from the Poplin shop to get a checkmark, which was an absolute outrage. Then I took this time to check the wiki to see what else I needed to do to 100% the game, which included completing the game and watching the ending, collect all Wonder Seeds, collect all purple coins, reach the top of every gold pole, collect all badges, which I already knew, and all 144 standees. So as much as I didn't want to throw away any more moolah at the money-hungry coneheads, I ended up giving that 10 flower coin to this cheeky fella so I could finish the 2 levels there, which for the first level ended up being a challenge course for the parachute badge, in which I was absolutely terrified from all the bottomless pits, despite it being a freaking 1-star. What the heck? Then the other one was running around like a goose up a bunch of invisible platforms to reach the top while avoiding the rollerblading Koopas that for some reason greeted with their tushies and... Oh, I'm sure everything will be just fine so long as I take my sweet time and there aren't any pits or toxic pools or... Yeah, no, that's fine. I just gotta stay on the bulls and stay put until I reach the end. Well, there goes 1 toad, which is completely fine because we have 2 more, baby. Alright, you're up next, Toadette. You better not fail me like your mushroom friend did. Alright, that's what I'm talking about. Good job, Toadette. And by that, I mean good job me, because I was the one controlling her. False alarm, we gotta go back. Ah! Oh, dang it, I forgot the elephant power up. Ah! Alright, just gotta go through here this time. Sacrifice the bull to grab the flagpole. And there we go. With that, it's time to move on to World 2. To summarize what happened, there were 3 more levels I had to complete where I got elongated, which I made an oopsie but managed to get out alive. Navigated through a scary amount of spiky balls, which I made an oopsie again but still made it out alive. Then the last one was a new badge challenge called the Jet Run badge, where I did end up falling but paused the game right before I died to then restart the level. Now some of you might think this is cheating, but to be fair, when you do die in a badge challenge, technically you don't see the death screen like this one where it says too bad, which means that I'm safe, and if you don't agree with me, then too bad. And with that, I had collected all the Wonder Seeds, to which I was rewarded with 100 flower coins, and I also gained access to a secret place called the Special World at Fluff Puff Peaks was my next destination, and upon arrival, I tried out the search party level first, which had me looking for 5-star coins to complete it. But I couldn't find the 5th one for the life of me, so I gave up for the time being. Then I easily completed the level after that, where I just had to look out for these boxing caterpillars from jumping me. Had a bit more difficult time with the next one, as I had to make this terrifyingly butt-clenching leap over the bottomless pit to the purple coin. And then came back to the puzzle level again, only to find out in the wiki that I needed our deceased mushroom friend to reveal an invisible block to get the last coin. And since he's dead, it's against the rule to use him again, so I guess that leaves us with only one option, button, which is to restart the whole freaking thing. Just kidding, I pushed this pipe to get it. After that was deleting birds with bubbles again, stopping by the shop to top up on dopamine, checking to see what's over here, carefully jump from pole to pole so I don't fall to my death, carelessly blow through this one because I know I won't die. Me and my big freaking mouth! Go back to the level again and not die a stupid death. Then attempted the 4-star difficulty level with the intent to restart if I died. But I didn't need to worry about that because that was a 2D platforming extraordinaire. Oh my goodness, that was way too close. Following that was getting a new badge called the spring jump badge that I ended up not using in the next level because it kinda sucked. Then on my way to the castle, this Koopa wizard spawned an airship. The place was filled with fireworks, bullet bills, and an overall chaotic environment. But once I got to the end, I just had to press a button to beat it. So yeah, nothing too crazy. After that was staying on this moving platform where I had to continue making it longer by hitting the smaller pieces. Other than my heart beating faster every time part of the platform broke off, it was a smooth ride to the end. As for the next level, it was definitely more stressful since jumping on the platforms too much had the numbers decrease, which when reaching 0 resulted in throwing you off board. Luckily, I was able to hijack this Lakitus cloud and rode it to the end to complete the level. Alright, with that, I think it's time to take on the castle, and actually let's visit the shop first to see if they have anything good, which from what we've seen so far, they probably don't. Bounce back out of pits, lava, poison swamps, it's a blue badge, take my money! And with this new badge equipped, the fear of falling to my imminent doom was neutralized, thus giving me the confidence to blaze through the palace level despite it being a 4-star difficulty. As for the boss fight, it was against Bowser Jr. again, except this time our surroundings kept changing every time I stomped on it. It didn't really make that big a difference in terms of difficulty, so I beat the little brat without any issues, awarding me the second royal nut. And with it, I captured Bowser's piranha droppings again, used the dolphin kick badge to swiftly beat the new pedal isle levels, and before long, it was time to enter the next world. World 3 was called Shining Falls, and according to the self-proclaimed / entitled bozo who called himself a master, in order to obtain the royal nut, we had to go through a cascade of trials. To which the prince asked if he can just hand over the royal nut to us, but apparently he's just a prince for show and has no real authority over his own citizens, as the master poplin says, rules are rules and leaves. So much for royalty. Anyways, the first trial involved dodging a bunch of fishies that jumped out of the water to kamikaze into me, but so long as I jumped before they did, I could knock them out fairly easily. Next was going through these things called hoppycats that, as the name suggests, hopped whenever I did my hops, sometimes coming out of nowhere to poke me with their spiky backs. So I made sure to hop several times to get all of them to come out to safely proceed forward. Also, I got to turn into one myself and it gave me mad hops. Then I had to do a search party level again, but this time I had to look for these invisible blocks to collect all the star coins that I didn't want to take hours looking for, so I googled it again, obtained the crouching high jump badge that ended up being fairly useful in the next level, but not the level after that, as 90% of it was just me running straight ahead with the star power up, and before I knew it, it was already time to take on a 4-star difficulty level that was most likely gonna take everything in me to not die. The inconsistency of this game is absolutely baffling. Speaking of which, the final trial was the exact opposite, as it had me slide along booster rails, causing me to panic at times like this, or crapping my pants free falling towards the unknown. Luckily, the safety bounce came in clutch, and I managed to finish the level without having to kill off our precious princess, for now at least. Anyways, after grabbing the Wonder Seed and capturing another one of Bowser's piranha babies, I'm then introduced to a new power-up that allowed me to become a drill, which was super OP since I could just drill into the ground or ceiling to stay away from harm's way, even making me impervious to falling minions thanks to my pointy head. Then I visited the poplin shop to blow half of my money to fuel my standee addiction as per usual, triggered an airship to spawn but decided not to attempt it because I wanted to keep my progress linear, and off I went to the next world. Upon entering, the first thing I ran into was a hidden search party level, and since I've been using the wiki for the previous two, I decided to try and spice things up by relying solely on my god-given brain to prove my unfathomable intelligence, but then ended up regretting it because looking for invisible blocks had nothing to do with smarts and everything to do with being an absolute waste of time. Then I bought a new badge that allowed me to consecutively jump higher than my normal jumps, which was pretty useful in some of the levels, especially against these mummies with the freakishly long head. Well, maybe not all of them. After that, I went through a level where time sped up significantly, did a badge challenge by parachuting my way through an obstacle of piranha plants to then viciously claw my way back up because I kind of forgot I can't die in the badge challenge, silly me. Finished the level in slow-mo this time, completed another badge challenge by using the crouching jump badge, and had a cat and mouse session with simping Dark Mario where I almost got caught to then chucking fireballs at him to stun him for as long as I wanted. Once I finished up there, I felt the need to step on these square question marks, which opened up a secret door that led to a measly 2-star level where I had to run from a giant spiked boulder. Then I found another secret course behind the sandfall, except this one stayed true to its difficulty level, as most of what I had to do was just jump to a beat to complete it, awarding me the rhythm jump badge. After that, I was back to clearing levels where in this one I had to do a whole bunch of shoving to get to different areas to proceed, with one of them being a room where I was pinned by the supercharged Koopa that pushed me closer and closer to the wall, where I was for sure thought this was gonna be it and I was gonna have to say goodbye to our friend Peachy Head, but thankfully out of sheer panic I pushed against the wall to then barely escape my demise. Following that was finding a hidden pipe that led to meeting Captain Toad, who just gave me free money, God bless his heart, purchasing everything this Poplin shop had to offer, including a new badge that I ended up not using because safety bounce is king. And just like that, it was time to take on the castle, which I gotta say actually lived up to the hype of it being a boss level, as equipping the safety bounce badge wasn't enough to prepare me for the numerous death traps that awaited me. And it didn't get any easier, as grabbing the Wonder Flower brought back that one effect where everything sped up and slowed down, causing me to make several blunders along the way. However, thanks to the drill power-up being the main power-up in this level, I was able to bypass a lot of the dangers that would have otherwise been a pain to deal with. Plus, I also used the slow-mo effect in my favor, as it helped to slow down the obstacles for me to safely get through to eventually reach the end. And with that, the only thing left to do was engage in an epic battle against the boss of this level, and it was Bowser Jr. again, and we all know how that went. Royal Nut number 4 acquired. But I couldn't celebrate just yet, as I realized that I had missed a check mark from the Shove Mansion level, which wasn't a big deal, as I just had to push this block, drop it in this pit, go through this pipe, run all the way to the end, and... well, that was the dumbest thing I've ever done. Indeed it was, but to justify my action a little bit and not come across as an absolute dingus, basically I thought that there was some sort of secret I could uncover beyond this point here. And since I had the safety bounce badge, I thought I could maybe jump off and bounce back to safety like the name of the badge supposedly suggests. But little did I know that I had left out a crucial information regarding its effects, and that was I could only do so one time per fall. In which I only have myself to blame and my inability to read a full freaking sentence. In all seriousness though, this one did hit pretty hard, since Peach did survive the longest so far, starting from the snowy cotton candy filled peaks of World 2 all the way to her unfortunate demise by yours truly in World 4. And the fact that I still had 4 more worlds to go, including Bowser's Castle and the special world, my optimism was beginning to wane a little, knowing that I was 3 characters away from resetting the entire game. But seeing that I got pretty far with Peach gave me enough confidence to press on fairly swiftly with our new All-Star Daisy, finishing up the rest of the levels in World 4 along with the ones in the Petal Isles, to then move on to the poisonous outskirts of World 5. And immediately I had to pay a toll to get this guy to let me through, which gave me the impression that I was gonna be in for quite the unpleasantry ahead of me. But setting aside that minor foreshadowing, something good that came off it was this sensory badge that helped in detecting the big purple coins or Wonder Flower by emitting a blue aura whenever they were close by. However, using this badge came with the risk of compromising my survivability, as I had to switch it out with the safety bounce badge, which wasn't particularly wise of me to unequip, especially since a lot of the levels in this world weren't so forgiving. Then again, the luxury of being able to easily find the required items was just too good to pass up. And besides, the levels at the start aren't usually too hard, with this one being only 2 stars, so I think I can get away with using the sensor badge for just a little bit longer. 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 Alright, so this might look really bad, and that's because it kinda is, but look on the bright side, at least we get to use a new character. Other than the fact that I was mentally unstable now, I eventually came up with a much better plan moving forward. And that was to use the safety bounce badge to first complete a level, and if I can't for the life of me find any of the required items for the check mark, then I'd switch to the sensor badge to sniff it out. Anyways, at the end of the day, so long as I had the safety bounce badge equipped, I knew that I didn't have to worry about dying anytime soon. Until this happened. What? So it turns out when you're in a unique transformation state, the effect of the badge did not apply whatsoever, which unlike my previous deaths was honestly beyond my control, so I wasn't too bummed out about it, as you can obviously tell. But with that, I was down to my very last character, Mario. And aside from the fact that I was most likely better off restarting the game at this point, I instead pressed on like the gamer that I was, believing in the skills and the knowledge I had amassed to achieve the impossible. I continued my perilous journey by knocking out the next few levels, where I learned to use the grapple badge, slid my way through gooey swaying platforms, and made light work of the KO arena of this world. After that was taking on the 4-star level called the Poison Ruins, where hesitating for even a moment was lethal, as I had to quickly scurry to get away from the rising poison swamp, along with turning into a slime again. And the stress of knowing that this very run could end with a single slip up into the poison swamp messed with my mind at first, but by letting that fear manifest into cautious gameplay, I was able to successfully reach the end of the level to escape the toxic ruins. And lucky for me, that level was the very last one I needed to complete in World 5, as the one after that was just getting to the Poplins to obtain the 5th Wonder Nut to then escort them out of the mines, leaving me with one more Cloud Piranha I needed to get rid of before I could take on Castle Bowser. However, it wasn't gonna be that easy, as the next world, called the Deep Magma Bogs, was gonna be the deadliest one I had yet to encounter, as majority of the levels had several lava-filled death traps I needed to avoid that had me profusely sweat every time I came remotely close to coming in contact with it. And not just that, but even the obstacles themselves felt a lot more difficult, as I found myself desperately working hard to maneuver my way through a lot of them throughout every level. But despite the sudden difficulty spike, one thing that kept me from giving into the gloom and doom was none other than the safety bounce badge that saved me from the clutches of death numerous times. But as much as I would have loved to cheese my way through the entire world with the OP badge, the final level completely ruined my chances of doing so, as I had to turn into a globbery goop again. But this time I had to treadmill my way up a rotating fossil above the poisonous swamp looming beneath me, all the while dodging the burst of fireballs that had me internally screaming in absolute terror. But by some unforeseen miracle, I was able to keep my cool to stay alive even when I was faced with nail-biting close calls, eventually reaching the Wonder Sea to then face up against the little junior. And even though my encounters with him were an absolute joke up till now, since I was down to my last character, I was feeling a lot more pressure than usual. But thankfully, even when he dimmed the lights and duplicated himself to escalate the mayhem, the overall difficulty stayed the same, where all I needed to do was wait out his spinning attacks and then immediately dunk him in the face. And by keeping it up, I managed to beat him without taking a single hit, awarding me the very last royal nut I needed to finally get to the big turtle himself. But before I could do so, I had to first take on a series of levels, starting with this one called the Missile Meg Mayhem, where the vast majority of the level consisted of an open bottom, which forced me to dangerously jump from one missile meg to another to keep myself from plummeting to the pit below. And even when I had the safety bounce equipped, I still needed to be careful since it could only cushion my fall once. But then I realized I could use this to my advantage, where as soon as the badge effect triggered, I would then pause the game right before I fell to my death so I could restart the level again, eventually allowing me to familiarize with the entirety of the level to beat it without dying. And believe it or not, thanks to this very method, I was able to breeze through the rest of the levels, including my battle against Bowser himself that ended up being rhythm based, which I absolutely crushed thanks to the years of mandatory music lessons I had to take because of my Asian background. Not to mention, beating him literally required pressing a single button, so need I say more? But although my battle against the Turtle King was a bittersweet victory, I couldn't celebrate just yet, as it was finally time to overcome the biggest hurdle that may very well be the end of this unbelievable run. With Bowser defeated and the Flower Kingdom back to its glorious state, the only thing left to do was to conquer the demons I first neglected at the beginning of this challenge. And although getting this far has been nothing short of a miracle, it was gonna be a completely different ballgame from here on out, as every one of the levels in the special world were 5 stars. But even then, the very fact that I was one world away from 100%ing this game without a single death gave me the last bit of motivation and courage I needed to see this challenge through to the bitter end. The first level was called Bounce Bounce Bounce, and upon grabbing the Wonder Flower, the whole place transformed into a spike-infested environment where the only way to get across was to use the giant hippos. Balancing myself on the morbidly obese creatures was surprisingly trying at first, where I constantly fell off them numerous times, leading to multiple resets in the beginning. But once I figured out that I needed to position myself more on the left side of the bouncy chunkers, the rest felt like I was riding a bike on training wheels, where I easily got to the other end to cross this first level off the list. The next one was called Climb to the Beat, where it was one of those levels where I needed to jump on tempo to avoid falling into the toxic muck below. But unlike the 4-star one I did in World 2, the speed at which the platforms disappeared was way faster, thus making the purple toxin rise up quickly as well, which almost made me miss my chance to restart the level. So to prevent that from happening again, I made sure to pause the game as soon as the safety bounce took effect, and with a few more attempts I managed to make it to the end. Following that was called the Triple Threat Deluge, a level that resembled that of a pinball game, but this one had one too many of them thrown by the 3 stooges of mass destruction. However, other than this one time where I got bonked in the noggin, the rest of the level was not too difficult, as the only risky part of this level were the falling golden prickly balls that were easily avoidable by standing under the dirt walls and these rotating fire obstacles. And since I was still good for one more hit, I decided to keep on going and was able to beat this one on my first try. And after topping up on some power-ups back in the Flower Kingdom, it was time to climb some poles at the pole block allure, where the whole level was an auto-scroller that required leaping from one pole to another while dodging the zooming school of poofy fish. But while doing so, the speed at which I had to climb gradually escalated towards the end of the level, where I found myself slowly falling behind, setting off the safety bounce badge in the process. However, rather than panicking by pausing the game, I chose to continue climbing, believing that I was near the end of the level, which worked out just as I intended, as getting past this titan of a fish was the last big obstacle before reaching the end to grab the Wonder Seed. And since the last one involved going up to keep myself alive, survive, the dangerous donut ride was the opposite, as standing on these hollow platforms brought me down a path that had danger written all over the place. But it doesn't stop there, as when I grabbed the Wonder Flower, the whole level turned into a skydiving section of pandemonium, where not only did I need to react quickly to swerve away from the bits of poison swamps that were in my way, but also be very careful not to accidentally overextend to the sides, all the while looking out for the mobs around me. And due to this, I had to crank up my concentration along with micro-tapping the joystick for maximum control, which eventually helped me reach the end unscathed. But despite getting that jitter-inducing level out of the way, the one thing that I feared the most had come to reality when I entered the solar roller, and it was because this was the level where I had to transform into a spiked ball, which meant that the safety bounce badge was useless here. Regardless of that fact, I still managed to pull through with a bit of quick reflexes to press the pause button moments before I saw the death screen, allowing me to get through it with a few more attempts. And as for the last two levels called the Piranha Plant Reprise and the Way of the Goomba, I had a much easier time with the both of them, as I could just tank all the damage with the power-ups for the first level, and the second one was a matter of exercising a bit of patience before proceeding forward. And with that, I had finished all the levels in the first floor and also bought off all the standees with the remaining flower coins, which meant the only thing left to do was use the 16 Wonder Seeds I had gathered to unlock the final level in the upper floor to take on the Wonder Gauntlet, which, as the name suggests, was an assortment of all the wonder effects that I had previously experienced combined into one massive trippy fiesta. But as much as the anticipation for a riveting challenge was expected of this final course, since it didn't restrict the effect of the safety bounce badge, I didn't have any problem beating it despite it being the final level. And just when I thought I was gonna receive the very last medal to mark the end of an amazing accomplishment, I was presented with an adversary I could never have foreseen. From what seemed like the end had finally drawn near, the game threw at me its last Hail Mary called the Badge Marathon, which not only tested my ability to effectively use all the badges I had accumulated, but it required the compulsory removal of the safety bounce badge that had been the key to my survival until now. Not just that, but every badge challenge in and of themselves were beyond anything I had faced so far, as every single one of them resembled that of the hardest Mario Maker levels I had ever seen. And the very fact that I had to beat it without dying even once made me wonder if it was even worth continuing on, as this final level was just too overwhelming even for a challenge enthusiast like me. Which is why I came up with a plan. You see, at the beginning of the video, you may have noticed that I had spent close to 100 hours on this game that on average takes around 19 hours to fully 100%. But one thing I didn't mention was that the account you saw in the intro wasn't the one I used to play this whole time, as the one I actually got on to play was this one with the blue Pikmin profile that has only 20 hours of gameplay. Which begs the question as to why I had a second account that I had spent well over 100 hours on. Well, as a challenge-loving, failure-loathing perfectionist of a gamer I am, I spent all those extra hours 100%ing a second game file, just so I could practice the badge marathon for hours on end until I could beat it at least 10 consecutive times without dying a single time. And after accomplishing just that, I returned to the original game file to then attempt the real deal, where I had but one chance to get the job done. For the first stage, I had to use the parachute badge to maneuver my way through a series of crystals while grabbing the glowing plants in order to make the poison swamp subside. Some of the sections were a bit tight to get through, but with some good timing and steady steering, I made it through to then switch to the bubble power up for reasons I'll explain later. Next was the floating high jump badge, where I needed to ground pound into the platform for it to move forward. A single delayed jump into this pipes overflowing with radiation and a poorly timed ground pound in this section here was all it would have taken to end everything. But since I knew the exact moments as to when I needed to ground pound from all the practice I had with this stage, it turned out to be a walk in the park. After that was the dolphin kick badge, and for this one I had to wait for the perfect time to move on unless I wanted to get zapped by the electrical current. But unlike the previous two stages that had the pull of instant death, the electricity for this stage only powered me down if I got hit. Other than swimming 2 laps around this area to grab the 10 flower coin, I got through it without taking any damage. However, the next stage wasn't gonna pan out the same way, as it was one of the faster paced badge challenges that required the use of the crouching jump badge. And one thing that was crucial to do here was to charge up the jump, which in failing to do so doesn't proc the effect, thus it would lead me straight into the giant gushing pipe. But luckily on the real attempt, I managed to execute each jump flawlessly and was able to make it safely to the other end. Up next was the wall climb jump badge, and as soon as I hop onto the first block, the poison swamp beneath me begins to rise. The key to making it through this one was to not slow down at any point, as doing so would ruin the optimal path I had mapped out for this stage. Plus, this was where I needed to grab the second 10 flower coin by jumping off of the seed spat out by the melon piranha plants, and if I were to miss the jump, I wouldn't get the extra height to grab the coin, which then would lead me straight down the poison swamp. Thankfully, it didn't have to come to that, as I managed to effortlessly perform the jump to then successfully parkour my way up to the top. Then comes one of the worst stages in the entire level, which was using the spring jump badge to bounce over a ridiculous amount of rotating fire blocks that spun at an absurdly fast rate, with the end being the most treacherous section, since the last two obstacles have but a single tiny block that wasn't just difficult to land on, but also extremely punishing, as taking a hit from one of the spiraling infernal beasts would basically cause me to fall to my death. However, even though this section was deemed almost unfeasible to get through, I discovered that by twirling at the end of my jumps aided in timing around the obstacles better, which was just what I needed to master this part to the T to then carry it out when it counted the most. And with one of the hardest badge stages out of the way, the remaining ones were a breeze, as the layouts for every one of them didn't even remotely come close to the previous badge challenge, allowing me to confidently complete all of them without any issues whatsoever. All but the very last one, that is, as the final badge challenge was the invisibility badge, where the only way I could faintly tell my location was through the trail I left behind passing through the clouds, in which, if you look closer, seems a bit too big a gap for a standard sized Mario to leave behind, don't you think? Well, that's because I had switched to the elephant power up right before entering this final stage, as doing so not only allows me to clear a bigger path through the clouds for better visibility, but also increases my hitbox for a wider area of contact to lessen my chances of falling into the pit. And by utilizing the best power up for this very last stage, slowly but surely I was able to make it past the first half by grabbing the third and final 10 flower coin to then arrive at the place where it all began at the start of the video, where it may result in a miserable failure or a spectacular triumph, a place where history was about to be made. And after taking all the time in the world to prepare myself for the inevitable fate that awaited me, I proceeded to take the first leap forward and... And I think that's enough Mario Wonder for one day, which means that it's time for me to roll out the outro and remind all of you to download War Thunder using my link in the description, because let's face it, it's free, it's fun, you get all these crazy unfair advantages along with these super cool festive decals. But only if you act now, because they are, as mentioned in my extremely convincing sponsor video, are limited time offers, which means you gotta sign up right now! As for me, I'm gonna go out and touch the greenest grass I can find, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye!